Pasquale, closer inside the traffic jam at 97.5 KDEE. We are Sacramento's grown folk station. I have on the phone with me Carol Magruder. Carol, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm
We've
wonderful.
been we've been praying for you in Sacramento. So, I don't do this work in a vacuum. We have a whole platform about social injustice, and so, of course, I'm in Atlanta right now, but Sacramento has been on the news with, the killing of Stephon Clark, and so
Yes.
we are prayerful of all that the community is going through there.
Well, the one thing about our community that's wonderful is we have a progressive city, we have a progressive city manager, a progressive city council, a progressive mayor, and a progressive uh, chief of police with Daniel Hahn. And we know that there is a need for reform, policy change, restructuring, and Sacramento is going to be, I believe, a lightning rod for the rest of the country to follow our lead and make changes, make real policy changes with the police so that they can't be murder squads against our young people, which is what they've
Yes,
turned into. And I believe
yes,
we have to attack the law enforcement officers' Bill of Rights, which really is intended, and it says it right there in the Bill of Rights, its intent is to protect law enforcement officers from prosecution or investigation. And we've got to change the narrative, and I think it's going to change right here in Sacramento because of the progressive nature of our city, and especially our police chief. So I'm glad the country is watching and praying for us. But just know that we really are a great city, and I'm glad you're here because it's Women's Month, right?
it's Women's Month. Yes, it is.
And you're the
Yes, it is.
co-chair of the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council.
That is correct.
So,
And so what we do as when you're a black woman, sometimes you forget you're a woman too, because we have so many black that cover all of us, but there are also issues that are, about women. And so I am a woman too. And the mission of my group is to save the 45,000 black lives that are lost every year to tobacco, more than everything else combined, including homicides and other forms of cancer that are not related to tobacco. So it's a huge issue, and it's something that's put on the back burner because of things like Stephon Clark that grabs our attention, and it needs to. And as you said, there's some reforms that we must address in this country. Period. And so it's easy to push the issues of tobacco, which kills way more people than these issues, but we have to deal with them simultaneously. We're smart enough to deal with these things simultaneously. And some of the things that we can do are enact policies and laws so that we don't have to deal with that and we can concentrate on these other things.
now I'm looking at some of these statistics as it relates to smoking, and as you said, we do have these are things that we have to deal with simultaneously. Now, one thing is
Mm-hmm.
one is a policy thing, but the other is a self-choice. I'm looking at a statistic says women are nearly twice as likely as men to smoke menthol cigarettes,
Mm-hmm.
and more than 50% of menthol smokers are women.
Yes.
In California, 70% of African American adult cigarette smokers smoke menthol cigarettes compared to only 18% of white adult cigarette smokers. Why is that such an important statistic?
That's an important statistic, and we get caught up with choice because people at this point, everybody knows that smoking will kill you. It's addictive. But media and advertising are very powerful and important, and they work. And so, whether or not, when you're after a young population, so in our community, there are two things going on. There are children who feel they're invincible, that they're not going to die. And sometimes in our communities, children feel like they're going to die anyway before they are, old enough to really grow up. So they might as well do whatever they want to do because it doesn't matter. So we have different things going on with our community. But advertising works. And so the one thing the tobacco industry is excellent at is they're excellent at, teasing out and segmenting their media campaigns to different groups. So with African Americans, Newports are the co-stars of our lives because they dumped Newports in our communities and gave them away for free to children in the 60s and 70s. And you're a musician, so you might have been supported by the Cool Jazz Festival at one point in your career. And I remember seeing Marvin Gaye.
Yeah, I never, but I know exactly. But I remember.
Yeah.
The Cool Jazz Festival.
Right.
You're right. And we didn't even
Marvin
know.
Gaye. We didn't know. And that's what my point is. I thought it was wonderful. I was a teenager. I went to the Oakland Coliseum to see Marvin Gaye at the Cool Jazz Festival. And I thought, wow, this is wonderful. Cool Cigarettes is supporting, our artists. So not to condemn artists because people have to make a living. And so the tobacco industry exploits that. So what was specifically done to women was, I'm sure you remember You Come a Long Way, Baby. So they tacked on to the women's liberation movement at that time. And because of that media campaign, which was linked to tennis, the king and smoking, sports and smoking don't really go together, but they managed to combine those things. But that resulted in such a huge uptick in smoking for women that in 1987, lung cancer surpassed breast cancer as the leading cancer that kills women. So people don't know that 60,000 women every year die from lung cancer as opposed to 40,000 from breast cancer.
Wow.
So more women get breast cancer and it's more survivable, but many, many more women are actually dying from lung cancer. And those women, they feel guilty because they feel like they had a choice in what they were doing. So the tobacco industry is there, they're insidious, and they get people to try it. And so, in California, we raised the smoking age to 21 because we know that, and if you have children, adult children as I do, people aren't grown until, I say you're grown when you get out of your parents' pockets. And so, if people, their brain needs to grow up and to mature some of that executive function. So the tobacco industry is there, and they know that if they sprinkle it out there, enough people are going to try it, and that's going to ensure their customer base, as their older smokers are dying off, then they're constantly recruiting new smokers, and they do that in different ways. So with women, you can be assertive, you can be independent, you can be slim, you can be pretty, when in fact it prematurely ages you and kills you, so those are the things that how they specifically target in a different way to women.
Now, how do people, if they want to find out more about Women's Month and about your organization, how do they get in touch with you?
So my organization, our website is savingblacklives.org, and our primary concern is African Americans, but we are trying to help everybody. We do a lot of work across party populations with other communities. And so, but for California, we have the California Smokers Helpline. So that's a free service to Californians. You call in, the number is 1-800-NO-BUTS. There's a website, nobuts.org. And it's a free service. It's tailored to you. You get a counselor. And the other thing I want people to know is that for people who have smokers, like this is my life's work, but I still have smokers in my family. And nagging is not an evidence-based method to get people to stop smoking. Nagging doesn't work. So family members can actually call the Smokers Helpline and ask what are the best ways to support a smoker to help them to stop smoking. And I want to say, in the church, we say, come as you are. So for smokers, don't wait until you made up your mind you're going to quit. Just call and get information, because that helps to move you along the line to quitting one day. You don't have to commit that day, but just call and get the information, the things you can do to start preparing yourself when you're ready to make the move and to become a non-smoker.
What percentage of African Americans are smokers?
So that's a wonderful question. Women, the California smoking prevalence rate is down where it's 12%, 12.6% overall. So we're second behind Utah. But Black folks, the smoking prevalence rate is higher. So women, it's 14.7%. And that's the official rate. For men, it's 15.8%. But when in our neighborhoods, and we as tobacco control folks, where we're living in segregated communities, that rate is much higher. And so when we actually get out into the communities where like Del Paso, I know a little bit about Sacramento. I lived there for a while. Smoking prevalence is going to be a lot higher in Del Paso than Land Park. And so, and when you have the norm of that's what goes on with the stores selling, they know who lives there, the single cigarettes that are sold that are legal, it makes the rate much higher. So the official rate is for women, Black women, is 14.7. But we feel that the rate is actually higher, and it is higher in segregated communities.
One more question. What's the life rate change, the life rate difference from smokers versus non-smokers?
It really depends, but smoking, when President Obama passed the Affordable Care Act, that was the one thing that gave people a higher, that gives you a higher payment rate, co-pays and high, for life insurance, because we know that smoking can take 10, 15 years, but there are many factors. But black men don't live to collect their Social Security because they die off way earlier than everybody else, and it depends on so many different factors. But just looking around in my own community, I know that smokers. There are a lot of people who are substance abusers who are still alive from the crack days and heroin days, but smokers are gone. Smokers, I know a lot of smokers who aren't here any longer. So smoking compounded with other drugs or other substance abuse, you die sooner. And if you have HIV, if you're HIV positive and you're a smoker, smoking makes everything worse. So if you're diabetic or if you have other health issues and you're a smoker, diabetics are going to have more amputations because of blood flow. So whatever our issues are, and we have so many, smoking just exacerbates every single other bad factor that we have going on. And so we want to have healthy, whole communities, vibrant communities so that's why we approach this as it's a civil rights issue, because you can't enjoy anything else if you're not healthy.
This is the co-chair of the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council. Her name is Carol Magruder. She's a Bay Area organizer, and they work to expose and address the inequities in tobacco use and its impact among diverse communities. And they want to inform women about what the tobacco industry has done to them. And Carol, I want to say thank you for coming onto the show, giving us this information. Is there a phone number where people can reach you?
Sure, there's a phone number. So for me, my phone number is area code 888-881-6619. That's 888-881-6619. And before I get off, I just want to say one last thing, and that's in San Francisco. Our Board of Supervisors, one of our leaders, Malia Cohen, introduced an ordinance that was passed unanimously. So in San Francisco, they are restricting the sale of menthol, all flavored tobacco products. So that means that Newports, Black and Mild, Swisher Sweets, and all the e-cigarette users. We didn't talk about e-cigarettes, but the e-cigarettes, all of our young kids are smoking these products, gummy bears, chicken and waffles, or all these flavors. So the tobacco industry has mounted a referendum. So that's going to be on the ballot in June in San Francisco for the voters to say, we do not want these products sold in our communities. So it will be legal for people to smoke them and have them, but the city will not allow them to be sold in the community. And just one last thing is that our opponents are trying to link this issue, saying that we're criminalizing the Black and brown communities. But this is not about possession. It's about getting in the income stream of these tobacco companies that are reaping hundreds of millions of dollars of profits from our communities, and what we're buying is death and disease with that. And so these problems that we have, we started out talking about, we have to deal with the police issue. So we cannot not enact good public policy to protect the health of our children and people, because we also need to deal with issues of police brutality, these officer-involved shootings, and having some good public oversight and responsibility and accountability when it comes to these officer-involved shootings in our community. So those are things we got to work on those at the same time, but we have to enact laws that will protect our people, all people, and Black people too. We need to benefit from public health policy just like everybody else. We don't make a seatbelt law and say, well, Black people, you get to pick whether you want to wear your seatbelt or not. We've decided everybody needs to have on a seatbelt. That's the law. And so for some of this public policy, we need to be protected just like everybody else. It's our right to be protected like everyone else.
I agree with you. Thank you so much, Carol. And
thank you.
And update us. Come back and update us. Let us know how everything is going.
I would love to. Thank you. And you are. I'm part of the NAACP, so I might be up there at some of the things that are going on around this case. So when I get back to California.
Thank you so much.
I will check in with you and let you know what's going on.
All right.
And we're praying for Sacramento. Thank you.
That's Carol Magruder. Thank you so much. You're inside the traffic jam at 97.5 KDEE. We are Sacramento's #1 community radio station. We're going to kick this one off with Michael Cooper, written and produced with Sacramento's own, the late great Robert Brookins. This one is called Over and Over. Frankie Beverly, Michael Jackson, Michael Henderson, all coming up inside the traffic jam at 97.5 KDEE.